that's what you could say about the Arkansas Razorbacks. This is the third season in a row. I think we can safely say now that this Arkansas team is on the same path as the previous two Razorback teams in terms of turning around just dreadful starts in league play. Arkansas goes on the road tonight, Rupp Arena. This has been a shaky road team. Just came off its first road win at South Carolina, kind of limped across the finish line there. But the Razorbacks roll, especially in the second half. This is where Arkansas teams have had trouble this year in second halves on the road. Heck, second halves at home sometimes. But the Razorbacks pick up their fifth consecutive league win, their second consecutive road win over Kentucky as part of a three-game winning streak. This is the first time ever in program history that Arkansas has beaten Kentucky in three consecutive games, with two of those being coming at Rupp Arena. Arkansas has one other previous three-game winning streak back in 2013, 12-13 season going into 13-14. But two of those wins were at home. And so Arkansas, when you start looking at right now, when you start looking at the narrative, how quickly has it changed? This was a team that just couldn't seem to win away from home. They did that in November playing neutral site games, but on the road it's been awful. And even the South Carolina game, if the way it ended, even though Arkansas finished right, wasn't a great second half and could have lost that game. Really came down to the last possession or two, and you wondered what would they do at Kentucky, a team that had won six consecutive games, arguably the hottest team in this league, six consecutive league games. Both Arkansas and the Wildcats had lost in the Big 12 SEC Challenge. But other than that, Alabama's still unbeaten in league play, so I guess arguably that's the hottest team. But Arkansas and Kentucky were both, despite how successful they've been of late, not enough quad one wins. Both of them, each team only had one. Arkansas comes in, and this is, to me, the biggest thing is, these were bubble teams, but it's a much bigger quad one win for Arkansas than it would have been Kentucky, because this is a road game. And all of a sudden now, Arkansas is 2-5 in true road games, back-to-back wins. The last one was a quad four result. This is quad one. This is Arkansas's second quad one win of the season. I think what's really key here is not only is it their second one against five quad one losses, that doesn't look great, but both wins are away from their home court. And if you tally up Arkansas's work in neutral site games, now they're 2-5 on the road. But they've got three wins on neutral site games, including one of those other quad one win and a quad two neutral site win over Oklahoma. The other quad one being against San Diego State, who's back in the rankings, by the way, back in the AP Top 25. That's a solid win away from home in the Maui Invitational. So all of a sudden now, when you add up that 3-1 record in neutral site games to 2-5 in true road games, Arkansas's got 5 wins now away from home, 2 of those being quad one. Against 6 defeats. So that looks a lot better, right? Your away from home resume just got stronger. I think that's a big deal. I think the bigger deal actually is this is Arkansas's best win of the season for many reasons, not just because it was a quad one win in a true road game, even though this is a Kentucky team that's on the bubble like Arkansas was coming in. But it's also Arkansas's, I thought, the Razorbacks' best performance at both ends of the floor for the longest stretches of this game. Even though Kentucky had some shooting success in the first half, they had to make tough shots. I mean, Oscar Tshiebwe in the first half gets 2 buckets. They're both perimeter shots. One of them he banked in. We'll call it dog smack, banking that shot in straight on. So Arkansas did a great job scheming him away from the basket, not letting him go to work. 7 points and 7 rebounds in this game. You saw a bunch of freshmen for Kentucky having career nights in that first half to keep the Wildcats in it. Other than that, Arkansas had its most complete game at both ends. I thought 88-73, a 15-point road win. So it wasn't just a win. It's a 15-point road win. And now when you look at Arkansas's having this 5-game winning streak in league play, 4 of those are by double-digit margins. This one being on the road makes it even more, I think, impressive, obviously. But this was a game I thought Arkansas in the second half especially, this is where the Hogs took off. It led by 1 at the break and just had an immediate 6-0 run to start the second half to go up 7. Kentucky hung in there for a little bit, closed within 4. Arkansas would make plays and push it back to 8 or so. But once Arkansas really got this into double digits, 10-point lead, then it swelled to 12, then 14, then 16, and then it was over. Arkansas commanding second half on the road, as well as this team played on the road against Missouri and Baylor. You could see it coming, but they didn't win those games. And officiating had a lot to do with it. Tonight, the Razorbacks didn't give the officials a chance. But this was a masterclass at both ends. I mean, Mikal Mitchell's 15 points, 7 of 9, 1 of 1 at the line, 5 blocks tonight after having 7 2 games ago. He's last Tuesday against Texas A&M in a home win by 11 points. When you look at A&M right now, they swept Auburn. They beat Auburn at home tonight, the Aggies. Only 2 conference losses. Well, Arkansas owns one of those. This is an Arkansas team right now, when you look at its last 3 games, 2 of those wins are quality. We know 3 of the 5 wins were against the bottom feeders, Ole Miss, LSU, and South Carolina. But you had to start somewhere. You had to build on it, and you certainly could not lose those games if the Arkansas Razorbacks. All right, I'm 5 or 6 minutes in. I don't even know if I've said Hogvillenet YouTube Live. Welcome. You know we do this after every home game, after every road game. Whether you win or lose, we do it. And it's always great when it's an Arkansas win for Hog fans to celebrate, even though it's a late hour, a late start. It's something big when Arkansas goes to Kentucky and wins any game, regardless of the quality. Musselman, by the way, picked up his 90th victory as head Hog. I heard him mention this was his 200th win as a Division I head coach tonight, so a couple of milestones there. He owns John Calipari. This is the 4th time these teams have played. Since Musselman came to Arkansas. He lost the first matchup. That was a shorthanded team when Isaiah Joe was out injured. Big game in Bud Walton Arena. If you remember, Arkansas had started so well that season, and Dick Vitale was there. Arkansas's won the last 3. I just talked about that winning streak, and it's the first ever winning streak when you look at it with the 2 road wins as part of that at Rupp. That's really hard to win there, and Arkansas's now done that. Twice in the last 3 seasons. Sandwiched around the big win last year. If you remember that February win last year, a 2-point game, very close. Kentucky was ranked 6th in the country. Arkansas was in the top 20. And that was more about national prestige and building on your NCAA tournament, no doubt, resume. It was late February. Both teams knew they were in. And now you're building on seeding and things like that. This was different. And these teams will play again in one of those rare home and aways with Arkansas and Kentucky. The Hogs will get them in the season finale at home at Bud Walton Arena. So now, at that point, you don't know where Kentucky will be in the standings. You don't know where Kentucky will be in the net rankings. Came in 32 today, so you got to be top 30 for a home win to count as a quad 1. But top 75 on the road, it was easily handled tonight with Kentucky's net ranking. So you don't worry about the Wildcats in their postseason. As far as I'm concerned, they can fail to go. You want this to hold up as a quad 1. And you want to make a statement. Now, Arkansas 6-5. That's the other thing with this 5-game winning streak. After 1-5 out of the gates, here's that movie again. Arkansas is now at this stage in the season over 500 in league play. It seemed like mired in that 1-5, but we saw this in back-to-back seasons before this season. So it's a big deal. Our net will be top 25 now. Ken Palmer's 21 after this win. How are we not projected as a 6 or 7? I think we're probably getting ahead of ourselves on the 6 or 7 right now. But, I do think Arkansas is no longer on the bubble. I think Arkansas, even though it's a quad 1 win, it's still over a bubble team who's keeping company with you. But the fact that it was on the road and now Arkansas's 2 quad 1 wins, neither are at home. And I think there's a little bit more value there. Later on, when a selection committee is looking at it, I think Arkansas has now shown it can go on the road and win in this league. Does anybody fear the road game at Texas A&M? I mean, you should respect A&M. That's a team that's only got 2 league losses to this point, and has played well, but it's a team Arkansas can beat on the road. And if you get Nick Smith Jr. back, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. I know fans are wondering about that. Someone's asking about it now, and I'm going to get to that. But if you get him back, everything's on the table again, including Tennessee and Alabama. We'll see where Arkansas is. But tonight we talked about the clinic. I mean, Arkansas, this is a Kentucky team that it was even better than A&M and South Carolina. That was one team strength of South Carolina, offensive rebounding. So back-to-back games where the Hogs gave up 37 collective offensive rebounds, but it only cost them, I think they were minus 12 or 13 collectively in those games with their own offensive rebounds. So pretty big disadvantages there, but only a collective -6 in second chance points. Well, here we go again. Tonight, Kentucky +8 on the offensive glass, 14-6, only +2 in second chance points. So Arkansas is maximizing its second chances and playing pretty good defense when the other team does get second chances, and only a -2 there. Arkansas dominated everything else that mattered. plus 18 points in the paint. That is very unusual to do against Kentucky, period. Certainly in Rupp Arena. And Arkansas's 46-28 outscores Kentucky in the paint. Arkansas was, when you start looking at transition scoring, Arkansas was 20-10 in fast break scoring, doubled up Kentucky. This has always been a strength of Kentucky's. No matter how bad they are, maybe sometimes they've been not very good shooting threes, and maybe, they're good usually on the offensive glass, getting to the foul line, getting stickbacks. But one thing Arkansas struggled with in the past with Kentucky is runouts in transition. And it was a problem a little bit early. Kentucky was +5, 7-2. Arkansas dominated the second half. Those first two steals from AB, jumping in those passing lanes and going the other way. And then you look at all the deflections, the steals, the block shots in the second half. The Mitchells, Mikael Mitchell was unbelievable. 5 block shots, just gobbling everything up. You saw Jordan Walsh get a block. You saw AB getting deflections. You saw Devo Davis doing what he does, poking the ball away, sneaky defender. And Arkansas had 10 steals, 7 block shots in this game. And they won the turnover battle +4, 15-11. This was a Kentucky team, by the way, that was only having around 11 or so turnovers a game. So you increase that. But they were getting 16 assists, so a good ball handling team. Yes, Veer Wheeler was out. Hey, look, no complaints, Kentucky. Arkansas is playing shorthanded by better players and more than just one guy. So there's no excuses there. But 15-11 win in turnovers, 23-10 in points off turnovers. This is a complete script flipper. Arkansas, even when it's been competitive in games in the actual turnover numbers, they've been getting clobbered in points off turnovers. They completely turned that around. +4 in turnovers, +13 in points off turnovers. So when you add up everything I just said, dominance in scoring in the paint, dominance in transition scoring, dominance in points off turnovers, and you shrink down, regardless of how much you're -8 on the offensive glass, but only -2 in second chance points. So you pretty much ran the thing. Now let's talk about offense and defense. Arkansas shot 32 of 51, 62.7% from the field. I mean, I could have just said that, and you're thinking Arkansas won at Rupp tonight. 72% in the second half, 18 of 25. The beauty in this number is Arkansas was 4 of 9 from 3, 44.4%. But what's beautiful about that? You didn't shoot them all night. You didn't settle. You attacked. And you didn't shoot up a bunch of threes. And when you did, you knocked them in. Arkansas was 1 of 3 from 3 in the second half, only 33%. You took only 3 because you were owning this game in transition and getting into the paint, into the basket. And again, look at the free throw line. Arkansas was a perfect 10 of 10 in the first half, 20 of 24 for 83.3%. Kentucky goes 11 of 18 in this game. So Arkansas shoots 6 more free throws. That tells you how much better Arkansas was driving the basketball and playing in the paint. And for all the times that fans complain about Arkansas going into Rupp and not getting whistles and there being a big disparity in free throw shooting, and what you've seen so far in much of this season, especially on the road, that probably was a concern. I think 7 or 8 minutes into the second half, Kentucky still hadn't been whistled for more than a foul. I think they were only at 2 fouls at about the 10 or 9 minute mark. And so you started to wonder, and the game was still within reach, 2 or so possessions. But Arkansas never let the free throw lines or the fouls become a factor. Even though guys played with foul trouble in the first half, Council and Walsh had to sit out a spell. Anthony Black had to play with 2 fouls, which I thought he did masterfully. But let's talk about these individual performances. Arkansas had 4 players score 15 or more points. That's big-time production, and I don't know that Arkansas's had that many guys score 15 or more in the same game. And then with Jordan Walsh chipping in 13, you had 5 players in double figures. And if you notice in Arkansas's last few games, Musselman's really drilled down now on a much tighter 7-man rotation with a little spot duty here and there. But, the 3 games in a row with Black, Council, Devo Davis, the Mitchell twins starting, Jordan Walsh playing off the bench, really a top 6 if you want to look at it from that standpoint. With Jalen Graham getting some spot duty, Joseph Pinion got in during competitive stretches in the first half. But this has really been a tight rotation of late, 6 or 7, with like I said, sprinkle in 2 or 3, and really that's the way Kentucky plays as well. Arkansas's top 6 or 7 were just superior tonight. And I mean, let's go down the list. Ricky Council with 20 points, efficient, 5 of 9 from the field, 2 of 3 from three. But getting to the free throw line, this is where it pays off when you're driving to the basket and when you're putting pressure on that defense and you're not settling. And Ricky gets to the free throw line and makes 10 of 12 tonight. Big game for him. Hit some down the stretch. When you look at Anthony Black with his 19 points, 5 assists, 5 steals, 4 rebounds. He did have 6 turnovers, but I thought when you looked at both halves, Arkansas has this kind of a night because I think Anthony Black was the anchor for this team, especially when Council and Walsh were sitting out big minutes in that first half with 2 fouls. I thought Anthony Black was big, as was Devo Davis. Devo Davis plays 39 minutes tonight, 15 points for him. He had a corner three. He wasn't a volume 3-point shooter tonight. Arkansas didn't need that from him. They didn't need that. But he, and so he gets 15 points, but 7 assists to lead the way there. You look at Ricky Council. I think he had 4 or 5 assists. I mentioned Anthony Black's. Arkansas shared the ball tonight. A lot of lob passes for layups, dunks, transition runouts. How many times have we seen Arkansas scrap and claw to hang in games with bigger, more athletic Kentucky teams that are dunking and kind of having their way, and Arkansas is doing everything it can to hang in there? I thought it was the other way around tonight. I thought Arkansas was the superior team, even though Kentucky has athleticism and size at certain positions and guys that can get to the rim. I thought Arkansas was just better at preventing. And I mean, look at the block shots and meeting guys at the summit tonight that Arkansas had. And then on the other end, guys like Anthony Black, Ricky Council, even Devo Davis getting to the rim. Arkansas did a great job, by the way, finishing late shot clock possessions tonight. Against South Carolina, they took threes that they looked like because they didn't think they could. They didn't even really try with the pass or to drive to get something better. Tonight, they got into a lot of situations where they got late in clock. And if it wasn't a Mitchell hitting a face-up mid-range shot, Jordan Walsh was perfect from the field, 4-4, including 1 of 1 from three, 4-4 at the foul line. So Walsh was big offensively, and he finished off some possessions for Arkansas. But I thought the Hogs were splendid. Early, middle, and late clock. This is the most complete game the Razorbacks have had. This is it. This is it on the season, and it's at the perfect time because what are you marching toward? You want to get off that bubble, and Arkansas was the team that might have just done that tonight. I think Arkansas at minimum's probably positioned itself, being the last 4 of the last 4 buys, potentially moves into a 10 seed, maybe depending upon what's going on with other teams this week before Arkansas gets to its next game in the next bracketology or the one by Friday anyway. So we'll see how it progresses through the week. Arkansas maybe a 9. I haven't looked at it. And you know what's interesting is I want to talk a little bit about Nick Smith Jr. I haven't really given an update recently. I've been giving updates. They've been spot on, but we haven't been able to get in certain specifics with an exact time frame. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to let Eric Musselman take care of that. I did not watch the post-game press conference tonight. Haven't been able to see that yet. I wrote the initial game story, got that published, got ready to do this, and so I haven't had a chance to do that. Yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff on Twitter. So I'm not going to go into a full update other than there's been progression. I've been saying all along that I believe the most likely outcome is that he's going to play again for the Hogs this year. I feel more confident than that than I ever have. Tonight, Jimmy Dykes talked about he thinks it's going to be sooner rather than later. I actually said that earlier on Drive Time Sports without giving any predictions on my segment. I think it was at 5:30 earlier tonight, that it would be sooner rather than later, and that I fully believe he will. I'm going to let Eric Musselman give specifics in terms of updates as far as practicing and different things, but you know that those are the things that have to happen next for Nick Smith Jr. to progress enough to get onto the court for game action. In other words, you're not going to go through a process where you've been out 6 to 8 weeks or however long it ends up being, and then jump right from that into game action. There's got to be some practice time and some other stuff ramping up to that. So I'll let Eric Musselman discuss the situation on that. But you know, reading between the lines if you want to, but I do think we could see a return of Nick Smith Jr. Like Jimmy said, and like I said earlier in my segment on the radio with Drive Time Sports, sooner rather than later. I think it's fast approaching. And one of the things I've written about as well was that it went from a wait and see approach for weeks, because we knew it would be sometime after January, to a day by day thing where things really can be fluid and start to move rather rapidly. So, put that together and take from it what you will. I will say this: when you see the way Arkansas played tonight, this is the best I've seen Arkansas step to the free throw line with all the guys who took shots, knocking them down. The Mitchells were perfect at the line. I mentioned Jordan Walsh being so good there, Anthony Black, Devo Davis, and Ricky Council. But I think the other thing is, when you get a Nick Smith Jr. back at some point, he's not only a three-level scorer, he's not only a facilitator. He draws fouls in bunches. He gets to the free throw line in bulk for a guard, and he's an 80+% free throw shooter. So if this was an anomaly tonight, once you get Nick Smith Jr. back at some point, if that happens, I believe it will, then you get better at the free throw line as well. And I think as your offense, we've seen Arkansas back-to-back games when you looked at 50% or better shooting at Baylor, then against Texas A&M. Great first half, 57+ against South Carolina. Not a good second half again. They bailed out, launching threes late in clock, didn't attack. So that was an anomaly, obviously, because tonight this team was great in the first half shooting the ball, even better in the second half. I mean, come on. 62, almost 63% field goal shooting for the game and over 72% in the second half. And you do that at Kentucky. I know this isn't a great Kentucky team, but this is a team that has good players, and it's playing on its home court. We know it's a well-coached team. Obviously not as well-coached as Arkansas. I thought the game plan to deal with Sheboy, the freshman Cason Wallace, really gave Arkansas fits in the first half with his stop and go and just his burst. And then his savvy. He made some good plays to get Arkansas off balance and just slow down and take a little floater or a pull-up shot or get all the way to the basket. So he's kind of picking and choosing. Arkansas threw some traps and double teams at him to get the ball out of his hands once he crossed half court. They didn't do it explicitly, but they did it. They changed that up. And so they were changing things to make other guys beat him. And guys like Toppin, Reeves is really a spot-up shooter guy. He's not a shot creator as much. He hit a few shots, but really Arkansas, this wasn't a guy that hurt Arkansas. It was really their freshman. Livingston was averaging over 5 points a game, and he had 13 in the first half. His career high in non-conference, it was in non-conferences, 14 points coming into tonight. And his SEC high water mark was 8 points, and he had 13 at halftime. The young man Collins, the big man, the athletic big from Oklahoma, from Texas, who Arkansas recruited out of high school, the 5-star, he's been in and out of that lineup with personal stuff, but he had a career high 7 points in the first half and hit a couple of perimeter shots, which is really not his game. And so I give their freshmen some credit. Arkansas took away Sheboy. Reeves didn't kill him. I thought Toppin was average. A guy that's, been up and down, very athletic, big frame, got some stuff in there, but I thought Arkansas's had more mean and more stuff around the rim and in the paint for him than he had for them. And, this was an Arkansas team, again, that was clicking on all the cylinders when I look at it, first half and second half. I think it's the best performance this team's had all year when you look at at both halves in a single game. There may be someone that disagrees with that, but let's go. I mean, when you look at the shooting percentages at all three levels, you look at the dominance in points in the paint, fast break, turnovers, and you were basically break even in second chance points, even though the other team came in as one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country and was +8 on the offensive glass, 14-6, but only cast in a +2 advantage there. So I'm repeating some of that stuff to say, when I'm looking at Arkansas individually, and then I look at the team effort and all of these things wrapped into it, and at the end of the day, you get your first ever 3-game winning streak against Kentucky with 2 of those wins coming at Rupp. That's a big statement because Nolan Richardson had success against Kentucky early on when Arkansas joined the league, and they won a couple of games at Rupp but early, in those early days. But they were never able because of SEC tournament matchups. They had a home win early on too, but they were never able to string together 3 straight with 2 of those coming at Rupp. And I think that's a big feather for Eric Musselman. We'll see. Arkansas is obviously not at the top of the standings in this league, but they're moving close. They're now in the top half of it, moving closer and closer. They're not going to threaten. I don't think there's enough games yet left to threaten Alabama without Alabama having some major letdown. but Arkansas is still playing for a top four seed in a double bye in the SEC tournament now, on top of improving its NCAA tournament, um, prospects. So this was, a win like this. It's one game, but you're packaging it together with five straight league wins, including back to back on the road for your first two road wins of the season. And if you're going to get them this time in league play, it's better than early in league play, and then you start to really slide in the middle or later. Arkansas, if you're going to start off, if you're going to be slow and have bad stretches in league play, better to start that way and finish strong. Arkansas looks like it's on its way to doing it. A lot of basketball left, but the way this team has played, now 4 road games in a row. I mean, really, I feel like Arkansas got jobbed. It's very unprofessional to say that, but I believe it. They got jobbed at Missouri and Baylor. The free throw disparities were unbelievable based on what your eye test told you, the way teams were playing in those games in the second halves. And those were the differences. And so this was a different kind of night for Arkansas, where the refs never got a chance. They just never gave them a chance to have that kind of effect. And I thought this was a well-officiated game for the most part. I really did. I thought that they let them play a lot, and then I thought the whistles were fairly balanced. Arkansas probably gets the benefit a little bit, but nothing unusual or that they shouldn't have. And I thought the technical foul on Calipari, he was frustrated in this game. He thought Mikael Mitchell traveled before making his move into the paint and finishing that little 8-footer. But I'm not sure that he moved his pivot foot though. But anyway, that was big, as Kentucky had just had a little run to take a lead, and Arkansas scores the basket, gets 2 free throws, and now they're up 3. Kentucky did score right before the half, but still Arkansas had an advantage there and led by 1 at the break. And so there's never a good time, in my opinion, for a technical. That didn't help his team. But that's not what Arkansas won tonight. Arkansas owned that second half, was the best team in both halves, but I thought the second half they were far superior than the Kentucky Wildcats. I think Arkansas, again, when I'm talking about Nick Smith Jr., I think that's on the way. We'll see exactly how it plays out. I'm very interested to see if Eric Musselman's addressed it in his post-game press conference tonight. Maybe he doesn't. I won't be surprised if he does. But let's see if and when that happens. These past games, the refs were affecting the Hogs' defensive identity. I thought Arkansas's defense actually wasn't. The offenses were having their way in the first half. Kentucky also shot over 50%. But a big part of that was Arkansas took away what Kentucky likes to do, which is, hang around that basket. And Kentucky, give them credit, they knocked down some perimeter shots. Sheboy had a couple. His only 2 makes in the first half were away from the basket. Cason Wallace, had some little mid-range stuff. Livingston had his career night, hit a 3, hit some perimeter shots. Reeves hit perimeter shots. So everything for Kentucky was mostly perimeter. I talked about Collins. He knocked down a couple of perimeter shots. He's been, every time I covered him on the grassroots circuit when he was in high school, he was an above the rim finisher and at the rim and in the paint. He wasn't a face-up guy. Kudos to him for working on that. But Arkansas took Kentucky away from what makes Kentucky its best tonight. And so even though it worked for a while, by the second half, Arkansas had turned it up, and the second half, the halftime adjustments were apparent. Arkansas's defense became much more opportunistic. Steals, more blocks, fast break scoring. Arkansas basically abandoned three-point shooting, even though in the first half the Hogs were 3 of 6 for 50%. They don't look. The recipe for this team is, even though the percentages are going up, is minimize the attempts, attack the rim, attack the paint, get to the free throw line. And it worked like a charm. Arkansas lived by that. They lived by that notion in the second half, and there was nothing Kentucky could do about it. Again, Arkansas was dunking in this game. Arkansas was getting to the rim in this game. Arkansas also made some tough shots. Anthony Black, Ricky Council, Devo, Mikael Mitchell. Some of his buckets weren't exactly easy. He did knock down a face up at the end of a shot clock where they went and looked at it, and he just got it off. But I thought, I don't know how much better you can be on the road than Arkansas was tonight. I just don't. Arkansas, I guess, could have done a little better defensive rebounding. They were -5 for the game, which isn't awful. -8 on the offensive glass, so maybe a little better on the defensive rebounding. But that's 3 games in a row where Arkansas has been clobbered on the offensive glass and a collective -8 in second chance points in the last 3 games while winning basketball games. So that would be nitpicking to go there. I think we've seen Devo Davis evolve his overall game. He's playing at an all league level right now. I think Anthony Black is playing consistently at an all league level. We're seeing more and more Ricky Council now. 10 points in the previous game, but the 2 games before that, he had 44 points, averaged 22 in the 2 games before the South Carolina game. And then tonight, 20 points again. And so that's 3 of the last 4 games where guys, got 60 plus points in 3 games there. So he's obviously raised his game. You continue to want to see him attack the glass, be a better defender. There was some stuff I thought he made some strides in this game tonight at times on the defensive end. Other times where I thought he got a little flat-footed and beaten. But I mean, he's progressing. But I think Devo Davis and Anthony Black are playing at all league levels right now. I think you can make a case for Ricky Council. I think Jordan Walsh continues to evolve. His game continues. He's not always great offensively, but he's always tough defensively. Yes, he's going to pick up some cheap fouls, tough defensively, and if he's not scoring, he's usually rebounding. The last game, 4 points, 10 rebounds. Tonight, not as much glass work, but 14 big points off the bench to keep Arkansas, help Arkansas when the rotation's tight, giving you some production off that bench. Makai Mitchell started tonight, not a big productive game for him, but I thought in stretches his length and also bothered Kentucky. There were things that he did that I liked. Jalen Graham had some first half stuff. He had a dunk in that dunker spot. I think Arkansas had a little 6-2 spurt to go up 3, and he got a dunk in that little run there. Arkansas had back-to-back dunks. Anthony Black got one in transition off a nice pass from RC4. I really like Devo's passing in transition tonight. Some of his passes at the end of shot clocks, as well as Anthony Black and Ricky Council, to get a teammate an easier look to finish off a late clock possession. I mean, man, I'm just rambling on about all the. I'm identifying. I keep going through in my head all these things that Arkansas did almost spot on tonight. Yes, there were some mistakes. We know Arkansas can have some ugly turnovers. 11 tonight, but you'll live with that. The goal is 9 or less for Musselman. He talks about that. If you're 2 over that with the way this team struggles taking care of the ball, when you look at the whole of the thing, the whole arc of it, this was a good night, and you were +4 in that department, and you were +13 in points off turnovers. I don't, you combine that with the steals and blocks and the fast break points, and Kentucky's got a long look in the mirror, losing by 15 at home and getting beaten all those hustle plays like that. Arkansas was just at a different level, winning those 50-50 battles, 50-50 ball battles, and being superior. And again, the defense in the second half, you hold Kentucky to 12 of, let's see, it was 12 of 30 shooting from the field, 40%. Kentucky was a 36% shooting team from 3. Tonight, the Wildcats made only 4 of 13. So just below 31%. Only 11 of 18 at the foul line, 61%. So Muss owns Cal, and Devo stays undefeated in his career versus Kentucky. Devo's a guy that takes a lot of shots. I think he had 3 turnovers tonight. He takes a lot of shots. We call them ill-advised shots, or sometimes they feel like turnovers. He had one earlier in the game where he took an early shot clock 3. But then he turns around and then there's cluster plays where he's just fantastic in different ways, getting loose balls, throwing ahead over the defense, getting a pull-up. He had his mid-range going tonight. He wasn't shooting as many threes. He had some mid-range shots. He was getting to the basket. Devo was tough. He was, and he had a tough assignment in Wallace, who had some really good moments in this game. But Devo, to me, he and Anthony Black, in my opinion. Wallace had a fine night. But I thought Arkansas's guards and Ricky Council, Arkansas's trio in the backcourt there, collectively were far superior. Kentucky had Case and Wallace, and I mentioned some of the other names, but it just wasn't on a level of what Arkansas had rolled out of the court tonight with its backcourt. And it's the best game. They've had good games collectively. I think this is their best game as a backcourt. And then again, I go back to Makai Mitchell, Makai and Jalen Graham at times. And then Jordan Walls in that combo 3-4 spot with a big, big night, in my opinion, when you look at the scoring, because this was a game where Arkansas offense was so good that it was also it fed the defense. Because what happens is, even if you have some missed assignments or some problematic stretches, when you keep scoring the ball, I mean 72% in the second half, it puts pressure on the other team to come back and respond. So you can have a blown assignment, and the other team's got a lot of pressure playing at home, falling behind by 6, 8, 10, and now it's starting to snowball. And so sometimes, you hear that a great offense can help your defense, even when your defense isn't perfect. Arkansas's defense played well in the first half, but still, Kentucky, give it Wildcats credit, they knocked down shots. Didn't have their way at the rim, but knocked down shots. They got some drives to the basket. They did get some layups, but they also had to knock down some perimeter shots just to stay in it. Guys playing outside their wheelhouse to do that. And then the second half, it was all Arkansas, really. And you just keep putting pressure on the team when they can't stop you, when their defense cannot stop you. You put pressure on their offense to try to keep up. And so your defense now is teeing off. You're crashing those passing lanes, turning those deflections into gold. I thought when Kentucky tried to drive in the second half, there was a Mitchell or a Jordan Walsh or an Anthony Black or somebody, molesting their drives and getting their hands on the ball, tying them up, blocking shots. Sheboy was done. They basically, he basically was, early on in this game, he started, I think, hitting those 2 perimeter shots, had 5 rebounds, and he was quiet. He was quiet from there on out. He got a loose ball and converted it into an and one finish in the second half. Just a fortuitous situation where he won a 50-50 ball and cashed it in, but that was it. I mean, that's we're talking about the defending, reigning national and SEC player of the year. Will Smith be back Saturday? Let's keep an eye on this progression. I'm not going to go into details other than my personal belief remains, has been the most likely outcome he plays as a Razorback again. My optimism has escalated to sooner rather than later, something I expressed during my Drive Time Sports segment tonight. I heard Jimmy Dykes talking about it during the broadcast tonight. So there's, he talked about fielding a lot of calls from NBA folks. I'm getting the same thing. And here's, the NBA people are talking about it. This is a guy projected as a top 5 pick for, a lottery pick if you don't believe top 5 at this point. So there's always going to be talk amongst the NBA scouts and different people. And so, just hearing the buzz, there's a lot of word around that folks in large numbers believe there's going to be a Nick Smith Jr. sighting in a Razorback uniform on the court when it matters, between the lines, in actual games. And we know all that's left now until the postseason are SEC games as Arkansas continues to build. So as well as Arkansas played tonight, let's see, we'll see what happens with Saturday. Arkansas is hosting Mississippi State. That's a 5:00 game, televised on ESPNU, by the way. This is another team that's going to come in and try to grind it out and dictate tempo. This was really the first game that I've seen Arkansas in a while really, really go on the road and dictate tempo. A&M's a team that likes to drive it down. Arkansas, playing at home, got to 81 points and had its way. We've seen Arkansas score only 60 against LSU, but won that game by 20, holding the Tigers to 40. So we've seen Arkansas, I thought, play really good offensively and defensively at Baylor. Should have won that game. I thought Arkansas should have won at Missouri. So this is a team in its last, you talk about the 5 straight league wins, the Big 12 SEC Challenge, that loss at Missouri. That 7 games, these last 7 games, I thought Arkansas has raised its level of play at both ends of the court. 3-point shooting's gotten better. Free throws are still, I think still in flux, even though tonight it was outstanding. But overall, this is a team that's gotten better and better. Again, I go back to the second half against South Carolina. That gave me pause that Arkansas finished the way that it did, even though it finished in 1, long stretch until it got late, 4 minutes left, and then Carolina comes back from down 13 to a 1-point lead. And so that's not the way that you want to walk out and finish that road game against that level of competition, because it might be the worst high major. You still won it, but it left me with some pause. But this game tonight solidifies the package of 7 games where that looks more like an anomaly now, that second half against South Carolina, because it felt kind of like that second half at Vanderbilt where we know the wheels came off. although Arkansas ended up winning at South Carolina, which is all really that matters now because, again, you've packaged these 7 games together where you've probably been the best team on the court every single one of those games, and 5-2 as the record. But 5 straight league wins. Now Kentucky's 6-game league winning streak has ended. It was the Wildcats' 3rd loss on their home court, by the way, this year. Top 10 Kansas beat them in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. And their previous last home loss was that South Carolina team. Go figure. I guess Carolina, has actually played better on the road than it has at home for most of this season. But anyway, the Razorbacks, what can you say? You've got 7 league games now left to play. You're 6-5, so you're above water. You're above 500. And now I think Arkansas controls. I do think this team controls its destiny. There are 3 more quad 1 win opportunities on the road. A&M next week in the midweek game, and then of the 2 of the last 3 games of the year, you're at Tennessee and Bama before you host this Kentucky team in the final game, the regular season finale at Bud Walton Arena, and that could turn out to be, if Kentucky, starts picking up some wins and gets into that top 30 net, that could end up being a quad 1 result. So Arkansas's got at least 3, maybe 4 quad 1 games left, but you've got to take care of the business against the ones that aren't. That means beating Mississippi State at home. Then you go back on the road. I mentioned it, Texas A&M. That's a quad 1 opportunity. Then you're back home for a couple of games, Georgia and Florida. Those are competitive teams. You got to win those at home. Arkansas's got to take care of home turf. 4 home games left, 3 road games left of these 7. You win out at home. You pick up at least 1 more road win. You're soundly, safely into the tournament field, I believe, at that point, if that's how it plays out, going into the SEC tournament. I think Arkansas can even do better than that because I think what I saw tonight, plus who I think they're getting back in fairly short order, gives this team a chance now to have the kind of run like it did 2 years ago when it snapped out of a 2-4 start, won a couple of league games, went to the Big 12 SEC Challenge, Oklahoma State, lost that, and then came back and won out in league play. I think that's a real possibility for this team. I'm not predicting it. I think it's a possibility. I wouldn't have said that a week ago before this team even picked up its first road win, even though it was playing better. You had to go prove you could win on the road. Arkansas's now done that, and they're not just. It's not luck. They're playing tonight. They played their best game of the season, I believe. If we want to go back to the San Jose State game when everybody was healthy, the one time they played together, Trevin and Nick, that was a clinic at both ends for the most part. But this is a different level of competition. You're on the road and you're playing without those 2 studs, and you still have this kind of a game. It says a lot about Eric Musselman. We haven't talked enough about him. He's been the constant these last 3 seasons, as has Devo Davis. Devo Davis, for Hog fans, should go down as one of the greatest Hogs ever, in my opinion, because of what he's been a part of after the wilderness this program was in. Musselman's been the constant coach, but if there's one guy that's been the constant, now I don't want to get over my skis and ahead of myself. There's still a lot to prove this season, but back-to-back Elite Eights, he hits the shot as a freshman that takes you from a probable loss to a win over Oral Roberts to get to that Elite Eight. Big hand in Arkansas's run last year, and here he is again playing his best basketball. If anyone's elevated it offensively and everywhere, it's been Devo Davis. This guy is an Arkansas legend. He is one of the greats of this program, and he's playing at an all-league level right now. If this continues, this guy has got to be a first or second team all-league selection. I already believe that about Anthony Black. I think Ricky Council's got a shot at that. One of the leading scorers in the league, and obviously Arkansas doesn't have a chance to be where it is right now without him. But I think Devo Davis, kudos to the first-year guys, but Devo Davis, man, you love to see it. I think something else you love to see, there were a lot of question marks about the Mitchell twins when Arkansas was playing in Europe, and then again earlier in the season, and then as Mackay started to nail down a starting role and show consistency, and the Mikkel getting his opportunities. He had some opportunities in Maui, kind of disappeared for a while. It was more Kamani Johnson and at times Jalen Graham. But we've really seen Mikkel Mitchell now. When I talk about these last 7 games and how well Arkansas's played, he's had a big part of that. He's been at a big role. And so the Mitchell twins have stepped up. I think Jordan Walsh's overall progression has been outstanding. You're starting to see him get it more and more. He looks less and less uncomfortable with things that he's doing. And I think, even though there's still maybe some fouling issues there, he has progressed. I think it's obvious. And, I look at his performance tonight being perfect. He's had several games now where he's either been perfect or close to it shooting the ball. And so as he gains confidence, it's not that he's going to be perfect every night, but we may see fewer and fewer of those off nights. And I think that may be coming this season and soon. So things might be lining up for Arkansas in the right way. It's Hogvillenet YouTube Live. I'm 45 minutes into this. Don't know how much battery I have left. Welcome. If you join me early, join me late, somewhere in the middle. We talked about Nick Smith Jr. I think they're getting him back soon. We haven't talked recruiting. There is a 5-star official visit. Trenton Flowers, big 6'8" guard that's supposed to come in March 3rd through the 5th. That's the weekend that Arkansas hosts Kentucky for that regular season finale. What people are not talking about, I didn't come out and report on this because I was asked not to. Some of the national guys did about Trenton Flowers. He's a top 25 5-star. Class of 2024. A couple of little nuggets I'll give you. He is considering reclassifying to 2023. Something he's considering doing. He's already taken some visits. Creighton, North Carolina. He's going to also, I'm told, visit Kansas and Alabama. Those are in the works. But I think Arkansas's got a great shot here with Trenton Flowers. Again, 6'8", 6'9", Combine Academy in North Carolina. Top 25 5-star player when you look at the national recruiting rankings. But I think Arkansas, Eric Melsman does a great job when they bring players on campus, whether it's unofficial or official. They'll roll out the red carpet. They'll show him where he can get better, what he does right, how the program can help him. That's going to be a big visit. Now, let's see if it maintains, because that's March 3rd through 5th, and sometimes things can change in recruiting and visit times. But there's a potential for Flowers, again, to reclass to 2023. Arkansas has already got 2 5-star signees in the November early period when you look at Layden Blocker and Bay Fall. And so that's class of 2023. So we really feel like Arkansas is going to focus on that transfer portal. But a player like this, Arkansas doesn't typically bring in 2024 for official visits during their junior seasons. But if he's considering a reclassification, that might be a reason to go ahead and do that. And I think that's why that has been scheduled. So just kind of hitting on those things right now. I wanted to give that recruiting update. And I think Arkansas, now that it's going to have a home game on Saturday, by the way, against Mississippi State, we're gonna be talking about some guys coming up for unofficial visits probably. Does Arkansas play at home against Texas, or where is that game going to be played? Against Texas. Well, they played Texas in the exhibition season. The game didn't count. It was a road game, and Arkansas got beat by 30. That was a long time ago. This is an Arkansas team, by the way. I say it all the time. I'll repeat it. If you had Nick Smith Jr. the whole time, you might have 2 or 3 losses. If you had Trevor Brazile the whole time, you might have 2 or 3 losses. If you have both of them the whole time, you might have 2 losses. Well, I'll increase the one or the other to 3 or 4 losses max. But with both of them, 2, probably 2. I think there's a good chance this team's unbeaten in league play at this point with those guys healthy. Because Arkansas, even though they were also first-year players, young players, struggling through some of that youth and experience, the talent is undeniable. And what those guys brought to the floor offensively and some other unique things they do, even on off nights and some of the struggles, I think Arkansas wins. That's where I'm at with that. It doesn't matter because it's not how it played out. But let's see if Arkansas gets one of those guys back pretty soon here. I think they probably will. And then, you don't expect that to move the needle just immediately when it does happen. But I think it will move the needle, and it's the right time of year for that to happen. Talking about baseball, I'm sorry, I couldn't. I don't know. I got to go read Dudley's work. It's in his stuff off the top of my head. I'm not sure. Sorry about that. I saw the first part of that scroll and I didn't see the baseball part.